WBS Dictionary can have all of this, and actually even more than this. Code of our account identifier, which is an identifier or ID. So this is definitely needed. Description of work, which is nothing but the scope description or the requirement description. Assumption and constraint, which is again coming from the scope statement with respect to that deliverable, if that applies. And this is also related to scope. Responsible organization, which is the stakeholder aspect, like who is going to own it or who is going to be like responsible from the stakeholders for this WBS. Schedule milestones and activities is the schedule part of the project. This is also the schedule part of the project. Resources required, like who is going to work on that from the team. The way we have already talked about that, who is going to exactly execute that part of the WBS or that element of the WBS is the resource or project team understanding for that WBS element. Cost estimations is like about the cost or budget. Quality is about the quality. Acceptance criteria, technical references is all about the scope. And any agreement information which can be about the procurement or supplier vendor related aspect. Why I'm writing this down? What sense I'm trying to make over here? You can see that scope, schedule, resource, stakeholder, cost, quality, procurement, and there can be communication related aspects as well over here. Communication, maybe how many changes have been accepted so far, their understanding, and multiple other stuff. The 10 areas of project management and their associated attributes for each of the WBS element is stated with the respective details in a WBS dictionary, which is exactly what I meant when I said holistic approach. The WBS is not only scope. Unlike project scope statement. Project scope statement is only scope. What we are going to do, what we are not going to do, and the details of what we are going to do. The acceptance criteria, the wireframes, the prototypes, the different use cases, user flows, key deliveries. In my case, when I used to be creating the scope statement, I used to have like because I was associated with the software industry, so each of the form or screen that we were making for each of the element on the form, like its type, its constraints, how when it's failing, what text is going to be shown. I mean, different attributes associated with each of the elements on the wireframe. We used to explain that for our developers and for our designers and quality people as well. Point being, everything about the scope, 100% scope, but a scope only. It's the scope statement doesn't talk about a schedule. The scope statement doesn't talk about activities. The scope statement doesn't talk about start date and date. Doesn't talk about dependencies. It doesn't talk about cost, resources. No, not at all. But WBS does talk about it. Maybe someone would ask me that at this point, we have never ever talked about schedule. We have never ever talked about cost. We have never ever talked about quality. How come at this point, when we are creating WBS in the planning phase, we would get to know about it, which we are going to explore later on in the predictive project. This again is going to be a very sensible question if somebody is thinking about it. That at this point, where we are standing in the planning phase of predictive project, we only have the scope. We don't have schedule, we don't have resources, we don't have budget, we don't have quality, we don't have communication. Maybe. How we are going to fill all of this in the WBS dictionary for a respective element? The answer to that question is, as we move along in the project planning, After this, we will move to the schedule development. After that, we will move to the before the schedule, we should have our resource planning done, then schedule, then schedule will give you your project finish and start date, and accordingly all the WBS elements will mention and start date. Then your budgeting will give you each and every element budget estimations in the WBS. So as you move along in the project planning in predictive projects, you get certain part of planning done and you come back to the WBS and you update it. Then you move to the quality, you get the quality requirements done and you update your WBS for the quality requirement. So once all the planning till the integration part is done, your WBS holistically will be ready. And WBS alone will represent the overall project plan eventually after the integration of your different pieces of the project system. So in a sense, your WBS is nothing but by the end of the planning, your WBS would be nothing but the integrated, consolidated project plan that would have everything in there, all those 10 areas of project management sorted out, arranged in a very logical manner in the different WBS elements, which gives you a huge level of visibility at a project level. So someone would ask me that how this is going to be done actually in practical projects. In practical projects, you create WBS in the project management, like Microsoft Project, Primavera, Asana, any predictive project management tool you can create, or bare minimum Excel or spreadsheet, bare minimum, which is not a project management tool, but people create project plans over there. So you give the WBS that visibility via this holistic approach after the different areas of project management planning is done independent. This is the concept of project integration. Right. So this is how WBS is different than the project scope statement. You start off with the WBS based on the scope, but eventually you get it updated till that time everything is done and updated in WBS, and then it will start providing you that visibility. And the better way of doing that is via project management.